Yo, it's me, OGDuffy, the original gamer. We are back with a versus video, and of course, as by the thumbnail, you already know, we're looking at Final Fight by Capcom. Now, you know OGDuffy and Capcom games, they're sublime, aren't they? I love Capcom, it's awesome. What's not to love about a Capcom title? But we will see how well this absolutely awesome, classic, side-scrolling beat-em-up does on the home versions and the various different versions we're looking at today. Now, just out of interest, I've got here my Japanese Famicom version of Final Fight. This is for the Super Nintendo, or the Super Famicom version, this one. Now, there was differences between the Japanese version and the SNES version, or the Super Nintendo, from the east to the west, so to speak, in relation to how this translated. A few differences. They changed the names of some of the characters, and the female characters were actually removed from the European version of this, I believe. Yeah, strange, eh? But hey, that's Nintendo for you guys. Anyway, I digress. So, a great side-scrolling beat-em-up. One, you go along, you're fighting to the end to save the girl, as pretty much always is the case. Now, you guys know I always bang on about Double Dragon. To me, Double Dragon was the one that started this whole course of games, of which there are loads. I mean, I always mention, you know, the Mega Drive Classic, Streets of Rage and all that. But I honestly believe that this was the, this is a better game than Double Dragon. Okay, I'll put it out there. If I had a choice, I'd probably still play Double Dragon to this day. It's just me, I just love Double Dragon. I have so many fond memories of it. But this is such an amazing game, it really is. And I think what made this one truly unique for the time was the sprite sizes, the character sprites. They were so much bigger than your typical side-scrolling beat-em-up that we've been used to up to that point. Okay? So, it's a good little game, and as always guys, before we compare this on the home version, we will go and look at the arcade version, of course we will. But the versions we're looking at this week are, we're going to have 3 rounds for this one, 3 rounds. So round 1 will be, we'll look at the 16-bit versions first, which of course are the Commodore Amiga and the Atari ST, going head to head as always. Now, we will then be moving on to the 8-bit home computer system versions. We'll be looking at, I'm laughing because I know the results. Sorry, okay. We'll be looking at the 8-bit computer system versions. We'll be looking at the Amstrad CPC, the Commodore 64, and the ZX Spectrum version, alright? And then finally, we'll be looking at the Super Famicom version, or the SNES version, and the Mega CD by Sega. Okay? Don't get me wrong, this came out on other systems of handheld. It was Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance version, which is apparently very, very good. And a few other handhelds. I think Dreamcast had a hacked version or something, and there was a version of Dreamcast. No, I can't remember. Drop in the comments what other versions you guys remember. But they're the ones we're looking at this week anyway, the ones I've just mentioned. So without further ado, let's go take a look at the arcade original so we can see exactly what we're comparing to. Released by Capcom in 1989, guys. It's the phone. Great little game, really good fun. But let's get a credit pumped into here and let's get the game underway. As you can see, this intro was just introducing the story. His daughter's been stolen, and of course, we're off to rescue her. We choose between 3 characters to get this stall comfortable. And there we go, my credit is in and we're off. So you got a choice of Guy, Cody or Hagger. Hagger is an ex-wrestler, I believe. 6'4", gives you their stats, you know. We're just going for a bit of Guy. Okay. Anyway, running off with her. Pretty little honey, isn't she, eh? Anyway, you've got your punch button, you've got your sort of your kit, your jump there. If you combine them, you can do that and then that. So flying kick. Also with this, introduces the phone boxes and the barrels and all that, and you bash them and the bins and stuff, and they drop things. Sometimes it's just food, sometimes it can be a weapon, sometimes it's smash them bins. Let's show you. Let's see what we get in these ones. Oh, a stereo, always useful in a street fight. Yes, definitely. Shame you couldn't use it as a weapon. You could also do throws in this, and how they worked you just sort of approach the character if they don't kick you, and you just, there you go, and it automatically grabs them like that, and then you can finish them off. Before we go down to sea, we've got food now, replenishes your energy bar. There we go, my super kick now, wiping them guys out. God, I'm hard, look at me. I'm Bruce Lee hard right now. Now, I'm not going to show you too much more because we'll be here all day. But I'll tell you what I really liked about this as a game. It wasn't overly difficult, so you got your money's worth with this, alright? Graphically, it was superb. Playability was superb. It's absolutely an amazing game. And I always make the comparison to Double Dragon, but playing it just then, it's just so much smoother and flows so much better than Double Dragon. Hurts me, it pains me to say that, but I'm a Double Dragon boy at heart. But anyway, guys, that's the arcade version, so we now know what we're comparing to. Is it me or is that noisy? But anyway, guys, great game, and it's Capcom. Let's go take a look at the, let's do the 16-bit versions first. Let's start off with the Atari ST.
First of the 16-bit systems, the Atari ST. Now, the sprites on this look okay compared to the arcade version, but I'm afraid to say that's as good as it gets. The animation on this I felt was poor. I thought it was poor sprite animation, and that scrolling, just look at it, what were they thinking with that? Now you got this music going on, there's no sound effects at all when you strike the opponents, and that music, if anything, gets a bit irritating, I felt anyway, you know. So overall this was a very poor conversion, I felt. I mean, the gameplay didn't play particularly well either. It was just not well done at all. But unfortunately, with most of the home systems we're about to look at, this is going to be a case for an awful lot of them, and I'm afraid to say things will certainly be getting worse before they get better. The other 16-bit is of course the Commodore Amiga, as always. Now the sprites again look good, it didn't look dissimilar, but it scrolled better. The sprite animation was better than the ST. The controls on this though were really awkward. I mean, you'd sort of have to press the fire button to pick things up, fire and push in different directions to get the different controls to work in different ways. And the opposite to the ST in respect of no music on this version, but sound effects. I mean, overall, it was not very playable, to be honest. It weren't that great. It looked better than the ST by scrolling better, and the sprite animation was slightly better, but unfortunately, when it comes down to that all-important gameplay, just didn't do it for me, I'm afraid. Now let's go look at them 8-bit systems. This is going to be interesting. The first of the 8-bit systems here, and apologies guys, I mean, don't get me wrong, they tried the large sprites and they used colour and stuff here on the Amstrad version, but do you know what, respect for attempting it, but it just plays really badly, okay? It's generally awful. I mean, you can make out that character sprite, but that's as good as it got, I'm afraid. Awful gameplay, had some sound effects with this one, no music, and generally really poor. I mean, to be honest, when it comes into my judgments at the end, you know, where I give my verdicts, especially with these couple of 8-bits that we're looking at today, it's going to be very difficult to come up with a winner because, well, you'll see the other 8-bit systems now. We'll go take a look at the Commodore 64 after this Amstrad effort. The Commodore 64 conversion here of Final Fight by Capcom. I don't know quite what's going on with his legs when he does that sort of flying kick. Looks like they've become a bit disjointed from his body. But anyway, here we go. This scrolled better and played a lot faster than the Amstrad that we just looked at. Very dull sort of colours, but you know, I always found that the colour palette on the Commodore 64 anyway could be quite muted. To be honest, right, although it scrolls faster, it looks better than the Amstrad. It's just another poor 8-bit conversion. No music on this, basic sound effects, and just generally awful gameplay. I mean, I always go on about the SID chip on the Commodore. Let's be honest, this is just lazy programming. They could have done something, surely, to go along with this. Anyway, the Amstrad versus the Commodore so far. That's as good as it gets. Let's move on to the Spectrum. And now the final 8-bit system, the ZX Spectrum version of Final Fight. Okay, now first off, right, I'm going to start with a positive on this. I respect the programmers for what they were trying to do. I mean, look at the size of the sprites for the Spectrum here, and you can make that character sprite out, okay? But that's where as good as it got, really. I mean, I think they had a good effort, and the effort was there, but overall, I don't know. They tried to pull it off, but with the other 8-bit conversion, it was just awful. I mean, did any of you guys at home purchase any of these versions we've looked at so far? And what was your thoughts? As always, let me know in the comments, people. Please, please do. I mean, I'm glad I didn't. Oh, God, I would have been so disappointed, especially with these 8-bit versions we've just looked at here. If I'd have bought one of them, oh, God knows what I'd have thought. And now them two consoles, we're looking at the Super Nintendo version here. Now first off, as you can see, looks great, sounds alright, looks alright. But the longer you played this, you started to notice things were missing. For example, there was a whole entire level missing from this version. Items are missing in the game as well. There are things like the telephone boxes, they're just not there. You couldn't play as Guy as a player, he was gone. And it was single player only. Also lacked a bit of slowdown, and as you probably noticed, compared to the arcade version, far less enemies on the screen at any one time. Despite these limitations though, in comparison to them 8-bits and them 16-bit systems we just looked at, the home computers, this is amazing, okay? But looks really, really nice. But then when you look beneath the levels, as I said, you know, there were things missing, but overall, not too bad. You'd have got your Final Fight fix with this system. And the final version we're looking at here today is the Mega CD version of Final Fight. Now this was a very good job on this conversion. There's no missing items, plenty of enemies on screen at once, scrolled well, played well, even had a little bit of extra sort of play. There was an extra mode on this version as well called Time Attack mode. Had a great soundtrack as well, and this soundtrack differed to the arcade, but it was still really befitting of the game, and overall a very, very good conversion indeed. If I'd have owned this on the Mega CD, I'd have been very, very pleased with this conversion. So anyway, that's it. We've looked at the systems for this week. We've given them a minute each of show time, shall we say. Now let's go and get my verdicts. And remember guys, let me know in the comments your thoughts, your beliefs, and did you own any of these?
Well, what can I say? That concludes the home conversions. Right, time for my verdicts, guys. But as always, hit like, hit the comments. Tell me in the comments your memories of Final Fight, okay? Do you love it as much as I do, the arcade version anyway? And do you have memories of buying this? Now, did you purchase this on the 8-bit systems? And if so, how happy or unhappy were you with your purchase? Drop it in the comments. All your memories, guys, please. Anyway, just a straight Heineken today. Nothing special. So let's get to them verdicts, guys. Right, let's start off with the Amiga versus the ST. Oh, blimey. Well, what to say, really. Both were very similar to look at. Now, if you'd have seen a screenshot of a non-play, just a straight screenshot in a magazine or something from the Amiga or the ST, you go, oh, bloody hell, that looks really good. That looks cool. Yeah, got Final Fight for my system at home. But when you got it home, you'd have been so disappointed. Neither of these versions played at all well. I mean, the Amiga, no music, basic sound effects, I mean really basic sound effects, and then the ST version, no sound effects but music, and my God, wasn't that music irritating. So if I've got to pick a winner between the Amiga and the ST, don't play either is my honest answer, if I'm being honest with you. They both look pretty in a screenshot, but when it actually come down to it, they're both pretty awful. But to be honest, I think if I was on a desert island and there was only one video game and it was either that one, the ST or the Amiga, I'd choose the Amiga version. Okay, so next up, them 8-bit systems. Let's go get my judgment on them. Again, what can I say? How disappointing was this? Honestly, let's be honest, back in the day, we all had, the vast majority of us owned anyway, the 8-bit systems. Were any of you unfortunate enough to buy this on your Commodore, your Amstrad or your Spectrum? Honestly, and how disappointed were you? Or are you seeing something that I didn't see and you enjoyed it? I mean, drop it in the comments. Right, to put these in some sort of order. Oh, this is hard. This is really hard. Right, okay, in third position, I'm giving it to the Amstrad. Respect to the Amstrad for trying to pull off that large arcade sprites, you know. I respect any programmer from that day that tried to pull off them giant sprites that were on the arcade version. I mean, respect to you. But surely, a week into programming or making this or whatever, you'd have looked at it and gone, you know what, this isn't working. Let's go scratch it. Let's go back to the drawing board. I don't know, guys. Them colours, I mean, they tried, bless. But as soon as you've got 2 or 3 enemies clashed together, my God, it's just like a bowl of gooey gunge of colourless. There's nothing to see. You couldn't make anyone out or anything. It was pretty just awful, really. So sorry, Amstrad fans. What were you thinking? Third with this one. In second position, I'm giving it to the. Well, it don't really matter who I give it to because they're all awful. It goes to. I'm giving it to the Specky. Again, I tip my hat to you, Specky, for trying to pull off them large caricatures. But oh dear. Seriously, guys, is it just me? It was a complete mess, wasn't it? It was just a mess. It's obviously too much to try and pull this off on them 8-bit home computers. Or was it? Could it have been done? I mean, you guys, you know your stuff. Give me some examples of games with similar sized sprites that they managed to pull off, or, you know, at least try and resemble, but get the gameplay in there. I mean, they tried it, don't get me wrong. They tried it with the Specky and the Amstrad, but it's just awful, just absolutely awful. And then we come to the Commodore 64 version. Yes, it wins, but it doesn't win because they're all losers at the end of the day. But I'm making it first of the 3. If I had to play absolute one on a desert island again, I would probably just choose the Commodore 64 because, I don't know, I could. All 3 of these were really bad. I mean, let's be honest, the C64 could have done something with the sound, could have, oh dear me. And when you do that flying kick in the C64 version, it just looks like his legs have become detached from his body and sort of gone a bit squiffy. It's really weird, really, really weird. So sorry, guys, but now we come to the verdict of the 2 console versions we looked at, which of course were the Super Nintendo or Super Famicom and the Mega CD by Sega. Now, both of these were really good, right? I'm not going to... They had their limitations, don't get me wrong. I mean, for example, the Famicom version looked great, but it struggled in places, especially with like getting numbers on the screen. You didn't ever feel like you were really being pushed with it. But the Mega CD version actually was probably the closest, easily, to the arcade. So, out of these 2 systems, its second position goes to the Super Nintendo or Famicom, and first is the Mega CD. Mega CD resembles the arcade the most. Don't get me wrong, it's not arcade perfect when you put screenshot to screenshot, but it was done very, very well. And there was a few different game modes in there and stuff like that. So, all in all, the Mega CD done really, really well on this. So, great stuff for Sega. Sega! So that concludes this versus video. Again, as always, let me have your comments. Do you agree or disagree with my verdicts? And give me a reason why. Why am I wrong? You know? And especially with the C6, all of the versions except the console version were absolutely diabolical, personally. Don't get me wrong, graphically, screenshot-wise, ST and Amiga could have carried it off. But I would have been so disappointed if I'd have purchased it based on that. So, I don't know, guys. I really don't know what to say. It's a very poor result this week. Anyway, chaps, comment, as always, like, and if you don't already do so, subscribe to the channel. And let me have your suggestions for future Versus videos. As you guys know, they take a lot of editing, these. So, I don't put them out as often as I'd like to. But I'll try. I'll see what I can do for you guys. See if I can put in a few extra shifts for the channel. I have to get a social life and, you know, get out for a few beers and that as well, away from the games room. Although I do like it out here an awful lot. Anyway, guys, you've been great as always. I've been OGDuffy, the original gamer. This Heineken's for you, my friends. See you next time.